Welcome to Ancient Wisdom. My name is Socrates, and tonight I am going to talk about something that has guided every step of my life: quiet search for truth.
But before we begin, I ask only this.
Let your shoulders fall. Let your breath slow. Let the noise of your day settle, like sand sinking in clear water. This story is not meant to fill your mind. It is meant to empty it gently so that peace can enter. Tonight, I speak not to your busy thoughts, but to the still, listening part of you that has always been there, quietly watching, quietly wondering. You may have heard my name in the marketplace of ideas. Socrates, the old man who asked too many questions, who troubled the powerful, who was condemned to drink hemlock. But the story you will hear tonight is not of trials or death. It is a story of living wisely, of finding calm within confusion, and of learning that truth whispers most clearly when the world grows silent. So rest now. Because I have learned that wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about learning how to rest in what cannot be fully known. True wisdom, my friend, is not loud. It is not proud. It does not parade itself in words or arguments. It is a gentle awareness, a constant remembering that life is vast and we are small, yet we are part of that vastness. So tonight we will walk together through a few ideas that once shaped my heart: humility, virtue, the voice within, and the peace that comes when one's soul is in harmony with itself. Do not worry if you drift to sleep while listening. Sleep is no enemy of understanding. It is often its most faithful companion. Even in dreams, the soul listens. It remembers what the mind forgets. So if your eyes close as I speak, let them. You are still learning. You are still safe. When I was younger, I believed wisdom was something to be won. I thought perhaps the cleverest man or the bravest or the most learned would reach it. But as I grew older and saw the world more clearly, I found that wisdom was not hidden. It was simply ignored. It was there in every pause, in every act of kindness, in every question asked not to win, but to understand. The city of Athens was full of noise, debates in the agora, merchants shouting their wares, poets reciting verses, generals boasting of victories. In that noise, people believed they were alive, that they were wise because they had opinions. But I began to notice something strange. The more a man insisted that he knew, the less peace he seemed to carry. He spoke loudly, yet his heart trembled. He argued fiercely, yet he did not rest. And I thought, perhaps the beginning of wisdom is silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of listening. So as you lie there, breathing softly, perhaps you can try it now, a small experiment of the mind. Notice the air entering your chest. Notice the stillness between breaths. That quiet space, that is where truth lives. In that space, you do not need to prove anything. You do not need to be right. You do not need to know more than anyone else. You only need to be honest with yourself. And honesty begins with peace. Sometimes people ask me, Socrates, what is the greatest thing a man can learn? And I would say, to know himself. For in knowing oneself, one begins to understand all others. The mind that studies itself becomes like a mirror reflecting the world, clear, unclouded, still. As the fire before me flickers low, I often think that each flame is like a question, rising, burning, and then fading into smoke. Yet even when it dies, its warmth remains. So too with our questions. Do not fear doubt, my friend. Doubt is the fire that keeps the soul alive. It lights the dark path ahead, and though it flickers, it teaches us to see. And so, tonight, I invite you to journey with me, not to the grand temples or courts of Athens, but inward into the simple stillness of your own being. Together we will look gently at the nature of the soul, the meaning of virtue, the voice of conscience, and the quiet courage it takes to live truthfully in a world of noise. Do not hurry. The night is long and wisdom does not shout. Let each word move through you slowly, like the tide against a quiet shore. For as the mind grows quiet, the heart begins to remember what it has always known. Rest easy, my friend. Let us begin this journey in stillness. The fire is warm, the night is kind, and I, your old companion, will speak softly until sleep takes you. The fire before me burns low, its glow pulsing like a living heart. The city of Athens lies in silence. The streets that once echoed with merchants and laughter now rest beneath the moon. Even the statues seem to breathe slowly, bathed in silver light. From where I sit, I can see the faint outline of the Acropolis, its columns glowing faintly like the bones of some ancient god sleeping. The air is warm but touched by a night breeze, carrying with it the smell of olive wood, smoke, and the faraway sea. This is my favorite hour, when the noise of men fades and the voice of the soul grows loud enough to hear. Plato sits near me, his cloak drawn around his shoulders. He has said little tonight. Crito, always attentive, watches the fire as if it holds an answer he cannot name. The younger students fight sleep, their heads nodding forward and back, their faces soft in the amber glow. I let them rest. Wisdom, like dawn, does not arrive through effort. It comes when one grows quiet enough to receive it. If you are still awake, listening somewhere beyond time, let this quiet enter you. Imagine the hush of these stone streets, the rhythm of distant waves, the warmth of this small fire. Imagine that you, too, are seated among us, one more listener in this gentle circle of reflection. There are no lessons tonight, no tests, no clever words. There is only stillness. For stillness is the ground on which all understanding is built. In the day, men rush through the agora chasing opinions. They argue over who is right, who is strong, who is wise. But night has its own truth. When the crowds disperse, when the voices fade, you begin to see clearly. You notice that the marble under your feet is cool, that the stars are countless, that you are small but part of something infinite. It is then that philosophy begins, not in books, not in speeches, but in this feeling. Quiet, alert, awake to the mystery of being alive. I have often said that the soul, like the city, becomes clearer when it grows still. A noisy mind is like a marketplace, full of shouts, confusion, and distraction. A quiet mind is like a temple, open, clean, and sacred. Only in that silence can truth enter. So let us practice this together. Take a slow breath in, and let it go. Another, and let it go again. Each breath is a wave pulling you deeper into calm. When you release the air, imagine the worries of your day drifting away with it, the arguments, the unfinished tasks, the small regrets. They belong to the daylight. Now you are under the guardianship of night. Here nothing is demanded of you. Here you may rest. I look again toward the city. Athens is beautiful even in darkness. Her temples like sleeping thoughts, her narrow streets like veins of memory. I think of how much energy men spend in the daylight, striving, debating, conquering, fearing. And yet all their striving returns to this, silence. Every voice, every empire, every speech fades into it. So why not make peace with it now while we live? A wise man learns to love the quiet, for it is in the quiet that he finds his truest companion, his own soul. This is why I often walk alone at night or sit like this by the fire. The world is never truly silent, but it always invites us to listen more deeply. The soft rustle of olive branches above me sounds like a whisper from the gods. I remember my youth, the years when I walked barefoot through the agora, asking questions that no one wanted to hear. Men grew irritated. They said, "Socrates, why must you always disturb our peace?" And I would smile and answer, "Because your peace is not peace, it is only sleep. I ask so that you may awaken." Yet now, in old age, I find another kind of peace, not the shallow sleep of unawareness, but the deep calm of understanding. The kind that comes when you have asked enough, doubted enough, and finally learned to sit quietly by the fire, expecting nothing. Perhaps that is what life is teaching us all, to move from restlessness to rest, from noise to harmony, from wanting to knowing that you already have enough. If your eyes are heavy, let them close. You are still in Athens with me. You are still in the circle of the firelight. The warmth still touches your skin, the night air still hums around you. Feel it, the balance of warmth and coolness, of silence and heartbeat, of body and breath. This is the middle space where wisdom lives. It is not far away, it is not hidden. It is simply here now. I look at Plato and smile. His eyes meet mine. He understands. Wisdom is not something I can give him or you or anyone. It can only awaken when the noise subsides and the heart begins to listen. In this silence we are all the same, old and young, rich and poor, scholar and stranger. All hearts beat in rhythm with the same mystery. All souls are warmed by the same fire. The fire crackles softly. A faint spark rises, drifts upward and disappears into the stars. I watch it go. Even the smallest flame leaves light behind. So it is with our words, our thoughts, our quiet acts of understanding. Each small truth, once spoken or lived, becomes part of something greater, a constellation of wisdom that will one day guide another traveler. And so, my friend, as the night deepens, know this: you need not rush toward enlightenment. You need only be still enough to notice that it is already here. The city sleeps, but the soul is awake, and that is enough. The fire sighs as another piece of olive wood collapses into glowing embers. The night deepens. The stars seem closer now, like eyes watching gently from above. Plato shifts beside me, his face half lit in gold, half lost in shadow. "Master," he whispers, "is it true what they say? That the oracle at Delphi once called you the wisest of all men?" I smile faintly. "It is true," I say, "but perhaps not in the way most believe." I lean closer to the fire, stirring the ashes with a small stick. The oracle spoke when I was younger, before the lines of age found my face. One of my friends, Charaphin, visited the sacred temple of Apollo at Delphi, and he asked the priestess, the Pythia, whether there was any man wiser than Socrates of Athens. I pause, watching a spark drift upward and vanish into the night air. The oracle answered, "No man is wiser." The students murmur softly. Even now, so many years later, those words feel heavy, almost absurd. I remember the confusion I felt then, not pride, not joy, but bewilderment. How could that be true? I was not a general, nor a poet, nor a mathematician. I had written no great verse, built no temple, commanded no army. If anything, I felt only aware of how little I knew. So I began a strange quest, one that lasted the rest of my life. Not to confirm the oracle's words, but to prove them wrong. I went first to the politicians, men who led the city, who held the power to shape laws and armies. They spoke with certainty, with practiced eloquence. But when I asked them simple questions, what is justice, what is virtue, what is courage, their confidence wavered. They had words but no roots beneath them. I left them saddened, not for myself but for Athens. The men who ruled us did not understand the good. They only understood how to appear good. Then I went to the poets. They wrote beautifully, their verses full of feeling and divine rhythm. But when I asked them what their words meant, they could not say. They spoke truth without knowing it, like flutes played by the wind. Lastly, I went to the craftsmen. They were honest men, builders, stonemasons, sculptors. They knew their craft, and in their skill there was wisdom. But even they, proud of their expertise, believed that because they knew how to shape stone or wood, they also knew the shape of the soul. And there too I found ignorance disguised as knowledge. I remember walking home one evening, the sun setting red over the Piraeus. I felt heavy with disappointment, not only in others, in myself. For I saw the same illusion everywhere, the illusion of certainty. Everyone wished to be seen as knowing, and so no one dared to admit that they did not. That night, I sat alone by a small fire, much like this one, and I realized what the oracle had meant. I was called wise not because I knew more than other men, but because I knew that I knew nothing. That small difference, that humility, was the doorway to truth. You see, my friend, wisdom does not begin with answers. It begins with honesty. I look at Plato and smile. His eyes meet mine. He understands. Wisdom is not something I can give him or you or anyone. It can only awaken when the noise subsides and the heart begins to listen. In this silence we are all the same, old and young, rich and poor, scholar and stranger. All hearts beat in rhythm with the same mystery. All souls are warmed by the same fire. The fire crackles softly. A faint spark rises, drifts upward and disappears into the stars. I watch it go. Even the smallest flame leaves light behind. So it is with our words, our thoughts, our quiet acts of understanding. Each small truth, once spoken or lived, becomes part of something greater, a constellation of wisdom that will one day guide another traveler. And so, my friend, as the night deepens, know this: you need not rush toward enlightenment. You need only be still enough to notice that it is already here. The city sleeps, but the soul is awake, and that is enough. The fire sighs as another piece of olive wood collapses into glowing embers. The night deepens. The stars seem closer now, like eyes watching gently from above. Plato shifts beside me, his face half lit in gold, half lost in shadow. "Master," he whispers, "is it true what they say? That the oracle at Delphi once called you the wisest of all men?" I smile faintly. "It is true," I say, "but perhaps not in the way most believe." I lean closer to the fire, stirring the ashes with a small stick. The oracle spoke when I was younger, before the lines of age found my face. One of my friends, Caraphon, visited the sacred temple of Apollo at Delphi, and he asked the priestess, the Pythia, whether there was any man wiser than Socrates of Athens. I pause, watching a spark drift upward and vanish into the night air. The oracle answered, "No man is wiser." The students murmur softly. Even now, so many years later, those words feel heavy, almost absurd. I remember the confusion I felt then, not pride, not joy, but bewilderment. How could that be true? I was not a general, nor a poet, nor a mathematician. I had written no great verse, built no temple, commanded no army. If anything, I felt only aware of how little I knew. So I began a strange quest, one that lasted the rest of my life. Not to confirm the oracle's words, but to prove them wrong. I went first to the politicians. men who led the city, who held the power to shape laws and armies. They spoke with certainty, with practiced eloquence. But when I asked them simple questions, what is justice, what is virtue, what is courage, their confidence wavered. They had words but no roots beneath them. I left them saddened, not for myself but for Athens. The men who ruled us did not understand the good. They only understood how to appear good. Then I went to the poets. They wrote beautifully, their verses full of feeling and divine rhythm. But when I asked them what their words meant, they could not say. They spoke truth without knowing it, like flutes played by the wind. Lastly, I went to the craftsmen. They were honest men, builders, stonemasons, sculptors. They knew their craft, and in their skill there was wisdom. But even they, proud of their expertise, believed that because they knew how to shape stone or wood, they also knew the shape of the soul. And there too I found ignorance disguised as knowledge. I remember walking home one evening, the sun setting red over the Piraeus. I felt heavy with disappointment, not only in others, in myself. For I saw the same illusion everywhere, the illusion of certainty. Everyone wished to be seen as knowing, and so no one dared to admit that they did not. That night, I sat alone by a small fire, much like this one, and I realized what the oracle had meant. I was called wise not because I knew more than other men, but because I knew that I knew nothing. That small difference, that humility, was the doorway to truth. You see, my friend, wisdom does not begin with answers. It begins with honesty. When you say, "I do not know," you have already opened your eyes. The proud man sees only the surface. The humble man begins to see depth. I look across the fire now at you, the quiet listener beyond this night. You too live in a world full of confident voices. Voices that claim to know what is right, what is success, what is love, what is truth. But beneath all that noise, there is something more sacred. The simple whisper of uncertainty that says, "Perhaps I do not know yet." That whisper is not weakness. It is the soul beginning to awaken. In Athens, many mocked me for it. They said, "Socrates, you destroy certainty but build nothing in its place." But tell me, how can one build truth on falsehood? How can a man find wisdom if his cup is already full of pride? No, the first task is to empty the cup, to pour out the illusion of knowing. Only then can something pure be poured in. Even now, as the years stretch long behind me, I hold fast to this truth. To be aware of one's ignorance is the first light of understanding. The fire crackles again. A gust of wind drifts through the courtyard, carrying sparks that vanish into the darkness like fleeting thoughts. I think of all the men I once questioned, proud generals, clever sophists, brilliant poets, and I feel no superiority, only tenderness. They too were searching, though they did not know it. We all seek the same thing, clarity, peace, meaning. But some seek it through victory, others through surrender. The wise learn that surrender is the greater victory, the surrender of the ego that must always be right. So tonight, as you rest in your quiet room, let that thought soften in you. You do not need to know everything. You do not need to have every answer. What matters is that you stay open, curious, and kind. Let the mind that says, "I do not know," become a calm lake. In its still surface, the reflection of truth will one day appear, clear and undistorted. That, my friend, is where wisdom begins. Not in the noise of certainty, but in the quiet courage of humility. The oracle spoke truly after all, not about me but about what lives within us all. For the wisest man is not one who knows much, but one who knows the depth of his own unknowing. The fire burns low now, steady, patient, unwavering. Each flame curls upward like a slow thought rising from the depths of the mind. I gaze into it, seeing not just light, but the quiet rhythm of truth itself. I do not know. Those 4 words, simple as they are, carry more freedom than any crown or title. When I was younger, I feared ignorance. I believed, as most do, that to admit uncertainty was to appear weak, a fool before the eyes of others. But I learned that ignorance, when seen clearly, is not weakness. It is space, an open field where new understanding can take root. The clever man who believes he knows everything walks with heavy chains. He cannot move freely, for every question threatens his pride. But the humble man who admits, "I do not know," walks light, unburdened, free to wonder, to explore, to grow. I look around at the faces of my students, Plato, Crito, the younger ones with tired eyes. They sit in silence, listening. The firelight trembles across their faces, and I can see in them the same mixture of curiosity and fear that I once felt. To let go of knowing is to step into emptiness, but only in that emptiness can truth enter. I turn to them and ask softly, what do we truly lose when we admit that we do not know? No one answers. Only the night replies, with the sound of distant waves against the Athenian shore. We lose nothing, I continue. We only lose the illusion that we ever had control. And in losing that illusion, we gain peace. So many people in Athens live in noise, constant opinions, endless debates. They cling to their certainty as a sailor clings to a broken mast in a storm. But the storm is not outside, it is within them. And all they would need to calm it is to release their grip, to float, to trust the water. I have watched men ruin themselves for the sake of appearing right. They would rather defend a falsehood than admit ignorance. They would rather win an argument than find truth. And I think, what a tragedy to be so afraid of being small that one forgets how to grow. There is a kind of quiet joy in saying, I do not know. It feels like the first breath after holding one's lungs too long. It is the beginning of every great discovery, every act of creation, every moment of genuine wisdom. The poets, the artists, even the philosophers, all of them began with that same humble wonder. What is this? Why are we here? I remember once, during a festival, a wealthy man approached me in the agora. He was dressed in fine robes, gold rings flashing in the sun. He said, Socrates, you question everything. Tell me then, what do you know? I smiled and said, only that I know nothing. He laughed, thinking me foolish, and walked away. But that night, as I walked through the quiet streets, I felt lighter than he ever could. He carried the weight of pride. I carried only curiosity. My friend, as you listen to me now, perhaps lying in your bed, your breathing slow, your mind somewhere between waking and dream, remember this. You do not need to have every answer tonight. You do not need to solve your life before the morning. It is enough to be honest. It is enough to say, I am still learning. Every soul is a work in progress, shaped not by certainty but by openness. When we stop pretending, when we stop guarding ourselves against the unknown, something miraculous happens. Peace. Peace does not come from control. It comes from trusting the mystery. The fire flickers again, throwing long shadows across the courtyard wall. I watch how each flame moves, unpredictable, alive, beautiful precisely because it does not resist the wind. That too is the way of wisdom, to dance with the unknown instead of fearing it. I turn back to the group and say, ignorance confessed is innocence. Ignorance denied is arrogance. Plato writes these words down quietly, though he does not yet know that they will one day outlive us all. The younger students look uncertain, as if trying to grasp something just beyond reach. I tell them gently, you do not need to understand it all now. Let the truth rest in you. It will awaken when you are ready. And to you, my distant listener, I say the same. You are already wiser for admitting your confusion. You are already free for choosing honesty over pride. Each time you say, I do not know, a door opens. You become a little more alive, a little more awake. You make room for wonder, for love, for truth. So let go of the need to have everything figured out. Let go of the voice that demands you must always be right, always certain, always strong. That voice is not your soul, it is your fear. And fear has no wisdom to give. In this moment, as the night holds us both, imagine all your I don't knows, not as failures, but as stars, small points of light scattered across the dark sky of your mind. The more you admit, the more stars appear. And one day those stars will form a constellation, the shape of your own understanding. The fire hums softly, the city sleeps. Somewhere a temple bell echoes faintly, slow, solemn, eternal. I close my eyes and breathe in the stillness. What I do not know fills me with peace. What I have yet to learn fills me with hope. And in that balance between wonder and rest, the soul finds its freedom. The night has grown deeper now. The stars above Athens shimmer like gentle fires of their own, and the moon glows pale behind thin clouds drifting lazily over the hills. The air is still, save for the occasional sound of a dog barking in the distance, or the soft flutter of an owl's wings as it glides silently through the night. The fire before us burns low but steady. Its warmth touches our faces, and in its calm rhythm, every heart seems to breathe a little slower. I look into the flames for a long while before I speak. When I walk through the streets of our city, I see men working, building, trading, striving. They polish their armor, strengthen their bodies, fill their purses. They care for their homes and their reputations. But tell me, how many care for their souls? The question hangs in the air. No one answers. Even the fire seems to pause as if listening. Plato leans forward, the orange light reflected in his thoughtful eyes. Master, he says quietly, how does one care for the soul? I smile. Ah, that is the question, is it not? I toss a small branch into the fire and watch the sparks rise. To care for the soul, I say softly, is to remember that it exists. Most people forget. They live as though they are only flesh and appetite, bodies that eat, speak, and age. They feed their desires and starve their spirit. And then they wonder why, even surrounded by comfort, they feel empty. The soul is not something distant or mystical. It is the part of you that knows when something is right or wrong, that longs for meaning, that feels peace when you are honest and pain when you betray yourself. It is the quiet witness behind all your thoughts, the one that watches, that remembers, that hopes. If the body grows weak, we rest and feed it. If the mind grows tired, we seek learning. But when the soul grows heavy, when our inner world feels clouded, anxious, or dull, we rarely pause to ask, what have I been feeding my soul? I lift my hand toward the stars. The soul, I say, needs nourishment just as surely as the body does. But it does not eat bread or drink wine. It is fed by truth, by kindness, by reflection, by beauty. I turn to the students. Think of the moments when you have done something noble, when you spoke gently when you could have been harsh, or gave when you could have taken. How did you feel afterward? Crito nods slowly. Peaceful, he says. Yes, I reply. That peace is the soul recognizing its own health. But if you act unjustly, if you lie, if you betray what you know is right, No matter what pleasure or reward follows, something inside you contracts. That contraction, that heaviness, is the soul's pain. I look again at the flames, thinking of all the men I have met. Generals who conquered cities but could not sleep at night, merchants with gold but no joy, politicians whose names filled the streets but whose hearts were hollow. They thought they were winning, but they were losing the only thing that cannot be replaced: themselves. To care for the soul, then, is not merely to think good thoughts, but to live them, to align the outer life with the inner truth. Every time you speak honestly, you polish the mirror of your soul. Every time you act with compassion, you strengthen it. And every time you forgive yourself or another, you set it free. The young men listen in silence, and I can sense their minds beginning to turn inward. Perhaps they are remembering their own small betrayals, the moments when they said what pleased rather than what was true, or took what was easy instead of what was right. And yet I do not wish them to feel guilt. Guilt is only useful when it points toward healing. The goal is not punishment, it is awareness. To you who listen now, somewhere far away, perhaps with eyes half closed and breath slowing, you too have a soul that longs to be cared for. You have felt it before, that ache after a harsh word, that unrest after a selfish act, that glow after a kind one. These are the quiet signals of your inner being, asking to be tended. And tending the soul need not be grand. It is not done in temples or great speeches. It happens in the smallest moments, when you pause before reacting in anger, when you listen instead of judging, when you choose to be gentle with yourself after a mistake. Each act of awareness, each act of love, is a form of repair. I close my eyes for a moment. The fire hums softly, the world feels timeless. I think of the gods not as figures of power, but as reflections of the virtues they represent: wisdom, justice, harmony, beauty. Perhaps the gods are not distant at all. Perhaps they live quietly within the soul that honors them by living rightly. When you care for your soul, you care for the divine spark within you. And when enough souls live in harmony, the world itself grows peaceful. That is how cities are healed, not by laws or punishments, but by individuals tending to the light within. The firelight flickers across the stones, painting the courtyard in gold and shadow. Plato has closed his eyes now, listening deeply, his breathing slow. The others are still, perhaps asleep. Even the night seems to hold its breath. Remember this, I whisper, my voice barely above the crackle of the flames. The soul is your truest self. To harm it is the only real injury. To care for it, with honesty, compassion, and humility, is the greatest act of wisdom. The fire shifts, sending a warm wave of air across my face. I watch the sparks rise and fade into the infinite dark, and I think, if each of us tended our soul as carefully as we tend our homes, perhaps the whole world would glow a little brighter tonight. The fire has burned low again, its light softer now, more ember than flame. The courtyard feels even more peaceful, as though the night itself were listening. In the quiet, I can hear the slow breathing of my students. Some have drifted into sleep, their heads bowed, their faces calm in the glow. It is well that they rest. For what I am about to speak of lives not in the noise of words, but in the hush that follows them. I draw a small circle in the dust beside me with a piece of olive twig. Look here, I say softly, though perhaps only Plato is still awake to hear me. This circle is the soul. It begins clear and unbroken. But every time a man acts against what he knows to be good, every time he lies or harms or betrays himself, a mark is made upon it. I press the twig down, scratching the circle's edge. One act may seem small. A word spoken in anger, a truth hidden for comfort, a kindness withheld. But each act leaves a scar. I glance up and Plato is watching the circle closely. The soul, I continue, is not wounded by others but by itself. For when we act unjustly, when we choose wrong while knowing it to be wrong, we tear ourselves from within. He nods slowly and I see that he understands. You see, my friend, the world teaches us to fear what others can do to us. Insult, betrayal, loss. But the wise man learns to fear what he can do to himself. A lie may bring advantage, but it makes the heart uneasy. A cruel word may silence another, but it echoes painfully inside the speaker. A selfish act may fill the purse, but it empties the soul. And yet, I say this gently, there is hope in this truth. For what is harmed from within may also be healed from within. Just as wrongdoing clouds the soul, repentance clears it. Just as arrogance closes it, humility opens it again. I take a breath long and steady. When I was younger, I too made mistakes. I thought that clever words could make wrong appear right. I thought that if I could win an argument, I could silence conscience. But conscience does not fade, it waits. It is patient like the gods themselves. The fire shifts, a log settling into itself with a soft sigh. Its glow reminds me of that inner voice, the one that glows quietly no matter how much darkness we gather around it. When we do wrong, we feel its heat not as comfort but as warning. It burns because it wants to keep us from burning more deeply. Crito once asked me, "Master, what if a man is forced to do wrong? What if he has no choice, if the world compels him?" I told him, "Then the wrong is not in the act, but in the heart that accepts it." For even when we cannot control our circumstances, we can still guard our intention. The world may chain the body, but it cannot touch the soul unless we allow it. So I say to you who are listening now, wherever you are, whatever burdens you carry, if you have acted wrongly in your life, do not turn away from it. Look at it gently as a physician looks upon a wound. Do not judge it with cruelty. Understand it with honesty. Ask what fear, what confusion, what ignorance led you there. And then forgive yourself. The purpose of truth is not to shame, but to heal. Every act of recognition is a cleansing. Every moment of awareness is a washing of the spirit. When you see clearly, you begin to live rightly again. Many men in Athens believe that punishment comes from the city, from law or retribution. But true punishment and true forgiveness come only from within. The soul punishes itself when it acts unjustly and frees itself when it returns to goodness. There is no hiding from this inner law. It is not written in stone or spoken by judges. It lives in silence, in that small unease that tugs at the heart after a wrong act. That unease is not cruelty, it is guidance. It is the soul saying, "Come back, come home." I watch the firelight flicker over the sleeping faces of my companions. I see peace upon them and I am grateful. For tonight they have listened deeply, not just to my words but to something quieter beneath them. You too may listen. Perhaps as you lie there, memories arise, of things done or left undone. Do not flee from them. Let them pass before your mind as clouds pass across the moon. They are only shapes, reminders, lessons. Each one can dissolve into light if you meet it with sincerity. The greatest act of courage is not to conquer others, but to face oneself without fear. The soul that dares to look upon its own darkness already stands in the light. I press my palm over the circle I drew in the dust, smoothing away the marks I made earlier. The soul, I say softly, may be wounded, but it is never ruined. It remembers its wholeness. It waits for us to remember too. Plato closes his eyes. The air feels lighter now, as if even the night breathes easier. And I think to myself, if men could understand this single truth, the city would no longer need prisons or wars. For each heart would become its own guardian, each soul its own healer. The fire hums low, warm against the cool breeze. Above us, the stars wheel in patient silence. They too have seen the rise and fall of every wrongdoing, and they shine still, untouched, forgiving. I draw my cloak closer and look into the embers one last time. To live rightly, I whisper, is to live lightly. For the soul that carries no deceit is free. The night is older now. The fire's light has grown small, yet it glows steadily, soft orange breathing in the dark. The air is cool, scented faintly with olive wood and sea salt carried from the distant harbor. Athens is asleep, yet the city seems alive in its dreaming, as if the souls of its people whisper through the stillness. I gaze into the embers and speak quietly, not to awaken the students who have drifted into sleep, but to offer these words to whoever still listens, perhaps to you who have journeyed here with me through the long quiet hours. Tell me, I whisper, why do people do wrong? It is a question as old as the stars. For if all men seek good as I have always believed, then why do they so often choose what is harmful, to themselves, to others, to the world around them? When I was younger, I thought perhaps it was because people were wicked by nature. But as I grew older, I saw that this was not so. No one wakes in the morning and says, "Today I will do evil." Even the cruel act from a mistaken belief that it will bring them something good, power, relief, safety, pleasure, love. The tragedy is not that people love evil, but that they misunderstand what is good. I lift a small coal with a stick and set it gently aside, watching the smoke curl upward. It is ignorance, I say softly, that leads men astray. Not stupidity but blindness. A man steals not because he loves theft, but because he cannot yet see that honesty would give him deeper peace. A soldier kills in anger not because he loves death, but because he cannot yet see that understanding would give him greater strength. Even those who lie or betray believe, in their confusion, that they are protecting something: pride, comfort, survival. So when I say that no man does wrong knowingly, I do not excuse their actions. I only understand them. For knowledge of the good is not mere information, it is vision. To know truly what is right is to feel it in the soul, and once the soul has seen it clearly, it cannot turn away. But most people do not see clearly. Their sight is clouded by fear, by desire, by habit, by the noise of the world. They mistake the glitter of wealth for happiness, the noise of applause for love, the ease of deception for strength. In their blindness they harm others, and themselves, thinking they are finding their way toward peace. The tragedy is that they do not realize peace can never be bought with pain. I remember once speaking with a young man in the marketplace, proud, eloquent, admired by all who knew him. He believed that to win every debate was the sign of wisdom. He asked, "Socrates, is it not better to be strong and victorious than humble and uncertain?" I said, "Tell me, my friend, do you conquer the other man, or do you conquer your own pride?" He could not answer. He walked away angry, and I pitied him, for he would win many arguments but lose himself in the process. Victory built upon ignorance is defeat in disguise. I say this not to condemn, but to remind us that wrong acts are symptoms of confusion, not proof of evil. And confusion can be healed through reflection, humility, and the slow turning of the mind toward truth. Look at the fire before me, each ember glowing yet covered in gray ash. If one were to judge only the surface, one would see nothing but dullness. But stir it gently and the light returns. So it is with the soul. No matter how darkened it becomes by ignorance, the fire within remains, waiting to be uncovered by awareness. You who are listening, perhaps you have done wrong in your life, or suffered wrong at another's hand. So hear this, the one who wronged you was blind. Their harm came from confusion, not from clarity. Their soul too is wounded by what they did. And you, if you have done wrong, must understand that what you need is not punishment but awakening. Once you see, you will change. Once you know, you will do better. I pause, letting the quiet stretch, letting the words settle like dust on calm water. The greatest gift you can give yourself is understanding. The greatest mercy you can offer the world is forgiveness. Not the kind that excuses, but the kind that recognizes the shared ignorance in us all. For wisdom does not divide mankind into good and evil. It sees all as learners, some further along the path, some only beginning. When the mind begins to see clearly, the heart follows. Knowledge awakens compassion, and compassion transforms the soul. That is why I say virtue is knowledge. Not the knowledge of clever arguments, but the knowing that comes from deep seeing, when the soul looks honestly at itself and the world and recognizes what truly brings harmony. Once that sight opens, wrongdoing becomes impossible, for the heart that knows truth cannot act against it. It may falter, it may grow weary, but it cannot willingly choose harm. The fire shifts again, throwing a last wave of warmth across the courtyard. The embers pulse like a heartbeat, steady, living, eternal. And I think, if the people of Athens, if all people could see this truth, that every evil is born of blindness, and every act of love is an opening of the eyes, then perhaps we would be gentler with one another. Perhaps we would teach instead of punish, guide instead of judge. For every soul is simply trying to find its way home to the light. I look upward. The stars are clear again and the air is still. Somewhere a rooster stirs, sensing the faintest promise of dawn. The good, I whisper, is not learned through fear but through awakening. Once seen, it becomes the only path one can walk. The fire breathes low. The night grows soft around us, as if cradling these words in silence. And in that silence, wisdom rests, patient, luminous, and kind. The fire has grown small now, a quiet bed of glowing coals. Its light flickers gently against the walls of the courtyard, painting soft shadows that move like living spirits. The night has deepened into stillness, and even the wind seems to have paused to listen. Plato stirs beside me, half awake. His face is calm, but I know his mind is turning, weaving the night's words into questions that will outlive us both. I speak softly, not to disturb the others, but to share something that lives close to the heart of my soul, something that has guided me more faithfully than any teacher or law. There is a voice within me, I say quietly, a whisper that has spoken to me for as long as I can remember. Plato's eyes open a little. A voice, master? I nod slowly. Yes. Not the voice of reason or of thought. It speaks before thought. It never tells me what to do, only what not to do. It does not command, it cautions. It is gentle but firm. It is my daimonion, the divine whisper. The word hangs in the cool air like a prayer. Daimonion. Not a spirit outside of me, but the purest part of what is within, the spark of the divine that lives quietly in every soul. I look toward the fire again. Many think wisdom is learned through books or debates, I say, but much of what is most important can only be heard in silence. The gods do not shout, they whisper. and they speak through this inner voice that each of us carries. I paused, letting the thought breathe. When I was young, this voice confused me. It would stop me just as I was about to speak or act or choose a path that seemed right to my mind. And later, I would discover that I had been saved from harm, sometimes my own, sometimes another's. So I learned to listen. Plato leans closer. "Is it the voice of reason?" he asks softly. "Reason," I reply, "is the lantern that lights the path. But the daimonion is the wind that tells you when not to take a step." I smile faintly. The clever can argue themselves into anything. But conscience, that silent voice, does not argue. It simply says no. I turn my gaze toward the stars, thousands of them scattered across the night like thoughts in the mind of the universe. "There is a harmony that runs through all things," I say. "The soul feels it when it is in tune with truth and feels dissonance when it is not. The daimonion is that feeling made known, the soul's way of keeping itself aligned with the divine order." Plato listens, his expression thoughtful. But I know these are not words meant for the intellect alone. They are to be felt. And you too, my quiet listener, you have felt it, though perhaps you called it by another name. That small unease before a lie. That heaviness before a wrong choice. That whisper that says, "This is not your way." Or perhaps more gently, "Wait." That is your daimonion, your soul guarding its own integrity. Most people drown it out with noise, with haste, with pride, with the clamor of the world. They mistake its quiet for absence. But it is always there, like a pulse beneath the silence. If you wish to hear it, you must grow still. Not still in body alone, but in thought. Let your mind settle like a pond after the wind. In that calm, the reflection of your true self appears, and with it, the voice that has never left you. Once, when the city was on the brink of battle, the council called me to speak. I felt the crowd's urgency, their anger, their hunger for action. My reason told me to go, to calm them with words. But just as I was about to stand, I felt it, the quiet pressure of the daimonion saying, "Not now." I obeyed. Moments later, chaos broke out among them. Had I stood, I might have been drawn into the violence myself. Afterward, I did not thank the gods aloud. I only bowed my head in silence. For the divine needs no flattery, only faith. The daimonion is not unique to me. It lives in all who listen. Each person has within them a compass that points toward truth, even when the world around them points elsewhere. But few trust it because it cannot be proved, measured, or explained. It can only be known through quiet obedience, a trust deeper than reason. I look into the fire. Its glow is small but unwavering, like the voice itself. It never shouts, I whisper. It waits. I turn slightly toward Plato and say, "When you grow older and the world praises you, remember this voice. When it tells you to pause, even when reason urges you forward, listen. That small hesitation is the breath of wisdom itself." He nods slowly, his eyes glistening in the dim light. Perhaps he understands, or perhaps the understanding will come later when silence finds him too. And to you, my unseen companion across time, the same truth belongs to you. You do not need temples to hear the divine. You need only stillness. For the gods do not hide in the clouds or the stars. They dwell in the quiet places of the heart. When next you feel that soft pull, the quiet resistance before a choice, the whisper that asks for patience or kindness or restraint, do not ignore it. It is not fear, it is guidance. It is your soul keeping you aligned with what is eternal. Listen long enough and you will find that this voice does not limit you, it frees you. It draws you away from chaos and toward peace, away from illusion and toward harmony. It shapes your path not by command but by love. The fire gives a final flicker, casting gold over the sleeping faces of my companions. The night holds its breath. I close my eyes and speak not to them, but to the quiet within me and within you. Guide me, I whisper, as you always have, not with noise but with silence, not with command but with care. The flame steadies once more as though in answer, and in its small, unwavering light, I feel the presence of truth, gentle, patient, eternal. The night deepens into that quiet hour before dawn, the hour when the stars seem brightest just before they fade. The fire burns low, a soft red glow against the stones. Athens sleeps still, but in the silence, the soul of the city feels awake, vast, reflective, ancient. I look at Plato, who sits with his head slightly bowed, eyes half closed, as if listening not to me, but to something deeper within himself. He has grown quiet over the years, and that pleases me. For wisdom is not in the noise of answers, but in the patience of listening. After a long silence, I speak softly, more to the fire than to my companions. There is a saying that many remember me for. I begin. The unexamined life is not worth living. The words sound heavy, but I do not speak them as a judgment. I speak them as an invitation, gentle, kind, and full of mercy. When I say that an unexamined life is not worth living, I do not mean that those who have not reflected are unworthy. I mean that to live without reflection is to move through the world asleep, to walk, eat, speak, and age without ever truly being awake to the wonder of one's own existence. To examine life is to look inward, not with condemnation but with curiosity. To ask simple questions. Why did I speak that way? What did I fear in that moment? What did I seek when I was unkind? What truth am I hiding from myself? This is not punishment. It is healing. It is how the soul remembers its shape. Most men avoid these questions because they fear what they might find. They prefer the comfort of habit, the safety of routine. They live as actors who never remove their masks, afraid to see the face beneath. But when the mask falls, when one dares to look honestly, something miraculous happens. The self becomes light again. The heart begins to breathe. I gaze into the dim fire, remembering the many faces I have seen in my life. Proud rulers, wealthy merchants, passionate poets, restless youths. Each one searching though they did not know it. Each one chasing shadows while the truth they sought lived quietly within them. It is easier, after all, to look outward, to blame others, to compare, to argue, to build walls. But the true journey is inward. It requires no ships, no roads, no maps, only courage and quiet. I once told a young student, "You can travel the whole world and still never leave your own confusion." He laughed then, but years later he understood. For the greatest distance a man can travel is from his mind to his soul. When I examine myself, I do not always find peace. I find contradiction, pride, stubbornness, impatience. But I also find the thread of truth that winds through it all, the quiet longing to live rightly, to know myself, to align my life with what is good. That longing, I believe, lives in everyone. It is the divine calling each soul to awaken. You, my unseen listener, carry it too. Perhaps you feel it now, a quiet stirring in your chest as you hear these words. That is your soul reminding you of its hunger, not for achievement or praise, but for clarity and peace. You do not need to sit beneath olive trees or study philosophy to examine your life. You need only stillness, honesty, and compassion. When you notice yourself growing angry, pause and ask, what am I protecting? When you feel envy, ask, what do I believe I lack? When you feel lost, ask, what truth have I stopped listening to? In these small moments of reflection, wisdom begins to bloom. And if the answers do not come, do not worry. The act of asking is enough. Each question opens a window. Each pause lets in a little more light. The fire crackles softly, the coals shift and sigh. I reach forward, feeding it a few small branches. The flames rise again, brief but bright, illuminating the faces of my students. For a moment, I see them not as they are now, but as they will be, teachers, thinkers, wanderers. Each will take this light and carry it into other lives, other times. Perhaps you will too. The exam in life is not about perfection. It is not about always choosing rightly or knowing all things. It is about living with awareness, noticing when the soul drifts from truth and gently guiding it back. Like steering a small boat across a wide sea, you will sometimes lose the current, but the stars, your conscience, your awareness, will always bring you home. There is freedom in that. Freedom from guilt, from pretense, from the endless noise of trying to appear good instead of being good. When you begin to know yourself truly and without disguise, life becomes simple again. You speak less but mean more. You want less but feel more alive. You fear less because you have nothing to hide. I look once more into the fire, its glow now steady and calm. I have found, I say softly, that peace is not found by changing the world, but by understanding oneself. For when the soul is at peace, even the world's chaos cannot disturb it. Plato's voice comes gently through the quiet. Master, how does one begin? I smile and answer, by noticing, by being willing to see. The first step toward wisdom is not learning more, but learning to look. He nods, and the night holds its breath again. And to you, my distant friend, wherever you are, if your thoughts wander as you lie there, let them. You are examining your own life simply by listening, by wondering, by breathing slowly in the dark. There is no rush, no demand, no perfection required. Only awareness and kindness toward yourself. That, my friend, is enough. That is where the journey begins and where it ends. The fire hums softly. The stars begin to fade. Somewhere, a light wind moves through the olive trees. I close my eyes and whisper, the examined life is not heavy, it is freeing. For in knowing ourselves, we remember we are part of something eternal. The first faint light of dawn begins to whisper behind the hills. Athens still sleeps, wrapped in a blanket of shadow, but the air has changed, cooler, clearer, touched by the promise of morning. The fire before me burns low, yet it still breathes softly, its glow pulsing like the quiet heartbeat of the world. I sit in the half-dark, watching the thin smoke curl upward, rising into the pale gray sky. And I think, how strange it is that light and shadow live side by side, always bound together. Without the dark, the fire would lose its glow. Without the fire, the dark would have no meaning. It is the same with truth and illusion. All men, I begin quietly, live surrounded by shadows. They mistake them for reality, and they live chasing shapes that vanish when touched. Plato looks up, his eyes heavy with sleep, but his mind awake. He knows this thought well. It is the seed of what he will one day call the cave. But tonight it is not a lesson of reason, it is a song of understanding. When I walk through Athens, I continue, I see people chasing shadows. The shadow of wealth, the shadow of praise, the shadow of power. They run after these moving shapes as though they were light itself, Yet the faster they run, the further the light seems to drift. I pause, letting the quiet hold us. You can almost hear the soft murmur of the sea in the distance, like the world breathing in its sleep. Do you know what the shadows are? I ask softly. They are the reflections of desire, the things we believe will make us complete. A man believes gold will bring peace. A woman believes beauty will bring love. A ruler believes power will bring security. And yet when they grasp these things, they find the same emptiness waiting, the same restless hunger. For peace does not live in possession. It lives in perception, in the way we see. The fire gives a soft crackle as if agreeing. True light, I tell them, cannot be found outside. It shines from within. It begins the moment a person stops chasing what flickers and turns toward what endures. When you close your eyes, I say, the outer world fades and another world appears, one of memory, feeling, and truth. That inner world is not made of shadows but of light. It is where the soul sees most clearly. I look at Plato. One day, I say, you will teach that the world is like a cave, men chained, facing shadows on the wall, mistaking them for reality. But remember this, my friend, no man is forever chained. The key lies not outside, but within. It is the choice to turn, to look toward the light. He nods slowly, understanding. You who listen now, perhaps your world too is full of shadows. The glowing screen, the endless comparison, the ceaseless thought that says, when I have this, I will be whole. But wholeness does not wait at the end of wanting. It waits at the end of stillness. The fire's reflection shimmers faintly in my eyes. When you learn to see clearly, I whisper, the shadows lose their power. They may move, they may tempt, but they cannot deceive a soul that knows its own light. Every illusion begins with forgetting that peace is not something to be achieved but remembered. You were born with light within you. Every truth you will ever need already glows there, quiet and patient. The fire pops softly. A single spark leaps upward, vanishing into the gray air. I think of how men fear losing what they see, their riches, their fame, their youth. But all of these are shadows dancing on the wall of time. The soul remains, untouched, unchanged, luminous. The philosopher seeks not to destroy the shadows, but to understand them. For shadows are not evil, they are only signs that light exists. Without contrast, truth would be invisible. Without darkness, we would never know dawn. Plato looks at me as if he sees something new, not in the fire but in himself. He whispers, so light and darkness are not enemies. I smile gently. No, my friend, they are partners in the dance. Darkness is the canvas upon which the light reveals itself. We must not curse it, only learn to see through it. The faintest warmth of morning begins to touch the horizon. The sky lightens from black to deep blue, then to gray. The fire's glow begins to fade, not because it has lost strength, but because the world around it grows brighter. I breathe in deeply, the cool air, the scent of smoke, the first hint of dawn. It reminds me that everything passes in cycles. Day into night, ignorance into awareness, sleep into waking. But beneath all change, there is something that does not move, the eternal rhythm of being. And that is where peace resides. I turn to my unseen listener, you who are hearing these words in your own quiet room. Your life too moves between shadow and light. You will have days of clarity and nights of confusion. Do not despise either. Each is a teacher. The darkness teaches patience. The light teaches gratitude. Together they make wisdom whole. If ever you feel lost, remember the fire. Even the smallest flame can banish the dark. Even one honest thought can awaken the soul. Truth does not require brightness, only sincerity. The city begins to stir faintly in the distance. A rooster calls, a cartwheel creaks, the world yawns awake. But for this moment we remain here, between night and day, between thought and silence. The last glow of the fire meets the first light of dawn. And in that meeting I see it clearly, the perfect balance of all things. Look well, I whisper. This is life itself, shadow and light, ignorance and wisdom, sleep and awakening. Do not run from one to chase the other. Simply be still and see them both. I close my eyes and feel the warmth fade from my skin as the cool air of morning takes its place. The world is changing again as it always does. And in that gentle rhythm I find peace. The sky is pale now, the soft gray before sunrise. A faint gold glimmers at the edge of the horizon, touching the marble rooftops of Athens. The night's chill begins to lift, replaced by the tender warmth of morning. The fire is nearly gone. Only a few embers remain, breathing slowly in the ash. The students sit quietly, wrapped in their cloaks, half asleep yet listening. Their faces glow faintly in the early light, serene and thoughtful. It is in this hour, between night and day, that truth feels clearest. Not because it shouts, but because the world has finally grown quiet enough to hear it. I speak softly. There was a time, I begin, when this firelight was all I had left, when the city that I loved turned against me. Plato looks up. He knows this story well, but I tell it again not to remind them of history, but to remind them of principle. When the trial came, I say, many of my friends begged me to flatter the jury, to plead for mercy, to speak in a way that would save my life. But I could not. For if I had used words to deceive, even to survive, I would have wounded the very thing I had spent my life protecting. My soul. I lean forward, tracing small shapes in the dust. Justice, I whisper, is not what the city decides. It is what the soul knows. When I stood before my accusers, I felt no hatred, no fear, only sorrow that they did not understand. They believed I had corrupted the youth, questioned the gods, undermined the order of the state. And perhaps, in a way, I had, but only by asking them to look more deeply, to live more honestly, to see truth above convenience. The city wanted obedience. I offered conscience. And for that they gave me death. Yet even then I could not flee. For I had always taught that wrongdoing harms the doer more than the victim. And what kind of teacher would I be if I betrayed my own teaching at the final test? Crito came to me in the prison. He whispered urgently, Socrates, the guards can be bribed. You can escape tonight. Your friends will hide you. You can live. I looked at him with love, for his offer came from the heart. But I said, Crito, if I flee, what will I become? He did not answer. And so I told him, if I escape, I will have saved my body but lost my integrity. I would go on living, but I would no longer be myself. For to me, life has never been about the number of years, but the quality of the soul within them. And a soul that lives by deceit cannot truly live at all. I lift my eyes toward the waking sky. The just man, I say, does not choose what is easy, he chooses what is right. Even when no one praises him. Even when no one understands. Plato nods, his brow furrowed with quiet thought. Was it difficult? He asked softly. Yes, I say. Every true decision is. But difficulty is not suffering when your heart is clear. I pause, listening to the gentle hum of morning. Birds begin to stir in the olive trees, faint chirps, tentative, curious, like the first notes of a new song. There is a peace, I continue, that comes from living in alignment with truth, a peace that no injustice can touch. When a man does wrong, he may escape punishment, but he cannot escape himself. When a man does right, even in loss, he is free. That freedom, invisible, untouchable, is the highest form of happiness. So when I drank the hemlock, I did not feel defeat. The body trembled, yes, for flesh fears pain, but the soul felt light as if released from a long burden. I had lived as I taught, and so I could die at peace. I look now at my students and at you, my listener far away in another age, and I wonder if you understand, integrity is not about being seen as good. It is about being whole. It is about never acting against the voice that knows the truth, even when silence would be safer. To live without integrity is to fracture oneself, to split the soul in two. One part speaks truth, the other hides. And no man can find rest while fighting against his own nature. The world will always tempt you to compromise. It will whisper just this once. It will say no one will know, but you will know, and your soul will remember. Each time you choose truth over convenience, you polish your inner mirror. Each time you choose courage over comfort, you strengthen the foundation of peace within you. The reward is not applause or safety, it is serenity. Justice is not a law of men. It is the rhythm of the soul when it moves in harmony with what is eternal. To live justly is to live musically, every action, every word, every silence a note in the song of being. When you act wrongly, the melody falters. When you act rightly, it returns to harmony. The dawn brightens, the shadows shorten. The fire's last ember fades, but I feel warmth still, not from the flame, but from within. Remember this, I say softly, my voice almost a whisper. No man can truly harm a good person. For harm can touch only the body, the name, the possessions, never the soul. The students sit in silence, each hearing the words in their own way. Plato writes quietly on a small tablet, the stylus scratching faintly. And I, gazing toward the rising sun, feel a peace deeper than any I have known. I have lost much, my reputation, my safety, even my life. Yet I have kept the only thing that matters. My soul remains whole. That, I think, is the essence of justice. To do what is right even when wrong would be easier. To keep one's light burning even when the world grows dark. The wind rises gently, scattering the ashes of the fire into the air. They drift upward, glowing briefly before vanishing, a fitting symbol of truth itself. Untouched by time, unchanged by death. The sun now begins to climb softly over the hills of Attica. Its first light spreads slowly across the city, warm gold brushing over rooftops, temples, and olive trees. The air smells faintly of earth and sea. Athens wakes gently, unaware that the night has carried us through a lifetime of thought. I sit quietly watching the dawn. It reminds me of another dawn, one that came long ago on the final morning of my life. The morning when I drank the hemlock. There was a stillness in the prison that day, a stillness very much like this. No hatred, no panic, only peace. My friends wept, but I smiled. For I had come to see that death, which so many fear, is not an evil thing. Do not fear death, I tell my listeners softly, For death is not the enemy, it is but the next turning of the soul. I pause, letting the wind carry the words as the world brightens around us. There are two possibilities I had said then, and I believe it still. Either death is a long, dreamless sleep, gentle, endless rest, free from pain and worry, or it is a journey, a passage to another realm, where the soul awakens into clearer light to meet those who have gone before. In both there is no reason for fear, for in both the soul finds peace. When I first said these words, some called me foolish, others brave. But I was neither. I was simply honest, for I had examined my life, and I had learned that the fear of death is the last illusion that binds the human heart. We fear losing what we know, this body, this world, these faces, this air. But what we truly are cannot be lost. You are not your flesh, nor your name, nor your belongings. You are the quiet witness behind them, the awareness that observes the stars, that feels love, that seeks truth. And that awareness does not die. It only changes form like water turning to mist. I remember holding the cup in my hands, cool, bitter, filled with the juice of the hemlock plant. The guard's eyes were wet. He looked at me as though I were the one consoling him. And perhaps I was. For I felt no anger toward him, no resistance toward fate. I took the cup, lifted it gently, and said, "What is to be, the gods will it so." Then I drank. The poison worked slowly, creeping through my limbs. My body grew heavy, my breathing calm. And as the pain faded, I felt a lightness unlike anything I had known before, as though I were being untied from a knot I had not realized was binding me. I looked upon my friends and said, "When my body has grown cold, do not say that Socrates is dead. Say only that his body lies still. For I, the true I, go on. Even now as I recall it, there is no sorrow, only gratitude. For death, I have learned, is not a punishment but a passage. It is the teacher's final lesson, that the soul is immortal, and that fear is only the shadow of misunderstanding. I look at Plato now, his face touched by the morning light. He will one day write of this moment, though not exactly as it was. He will make it beautiful as he always does. But I hope he remembers the feeling, not just the form, the stillness, the clarity, the acceptance. I turn my gaze toward the horizon. The light of day grows stronger, painting the city in gold. The shadows retreat into corners, like thoughts dissolving in calm understanding. The fire beside me is almost gone, its smoke curling softly into the air. And yet, its warmth lingers, just as the soul lingers beyond the body's end. Many fear death, I say, because they believe it is a taking away, but it is a giving back. It returns us to what we came from, to the great rhythm of existence, to the harmony from which all life flows. If you listen closely now, you can hear that rhythm. It lives in the beating of your heart, in the sound of your breathing, in the hush between each thought. That rhythm will continue when your body grows still, for it was never yours alone. It belongs to the universe itself. Do not grieve when things end. Endings are simply beginnings in another direction. The tree that falls feeds the earth. The star that burns out scatters light for centuries. The man who dies leaves his words, his kindness, his truth, seeds for others to find and grow. So it is with us. Even as the body fades, the soul continues to shape the world through those it has touched. Perhaps even now you are hearing these words because that same truth continues to move through time, from my voice through generations into your heart. And so death cannot silence wisdom. It cannot end love. It cannot extinguish light. It can only change the form through which they shine. The students are silent. The birds have begun their morning songs. The sun now stands higher, painting the courtyard in soft gold. I can feel the warmth on my skin, the same warmth that once touched me in that prison cell long ago. It feels familiar, eternal. Listen, I whisper. Life and death are not opposites. They are partners. Together they teach us to value what is eternal and to release what is not. When you understand this, fear disappears and peace takes its place. I let the silence rest. Only the wind moves, stirring the last gray ash of the fire. Remember this, I say finally, my voice gentle, almost carried away by the breeze. To live without fear of death is to live fully. And to live fully is to die peacefully. The world glows brighter now, the sky pure and wide. The night that held so many thoughts has given birth to a clear, calm day. And within that calm, I feel it again. The eternal presence that has always guided me, the same whisper that speaks to every soul when it is quiet enough to hear. It says not in words but in feeling, you are safe, you are endless, you are home. The morning has fully come. The horizon glows with soft gold, and the first warmth of the sun spreads slowly across the marble stones. The shadows of the olive trees stretch long across the courtyard, and the breeze carries with it the scent of the sea, calm, infinite, unhurried. The fire beside me is now only a memory, faint warmth in the ashes, a wisp of smoke curling into the bright air. The night's long conversation has ended, yet the peace it brought lingers like perfume. And so I speak again, softly, not to my students alone, but to you, the quiet listener who has stayed through the long night of thought and reflection. Do you know, I begin, why I am not afraid, not of pain, not of poverty, not of death, not even of the world's misunderstanding? I pause, listening to the faint hum of the waking city. It is because I have learned that no one can truly harm a good person. The words fall gently, but they carry the weight of a lifetime. Plato looks at me, curious yet calm. He knows I have said this before, but this morning, as light fills the air, he hears it differently. What do you mean, master? He asks quietly. I smile. I mean that the world can wound the body, insult the name, take away all that is seen. But goodness, the inner truth of the soul, cannot be touched. The body is like a garment. Time will wear it away. The name is like an echo. It fades when the voice is gone. But the soul, the living truth within, is beyond the reach of fire or blade, of judgment or time. It is made of something purer than the elements, the same essence that moves the stars and gives life to the breath. So long as one remains true to that inner light, the world can do nothing to destroy it. It may test it, challenge it, bruise it, but in doing so, it only makes the light clearer. I remember the day of my trial, the murmur of the crowd, the stern faces of the judges, the smell of dust in the air. They believed they held my fate in their hands. But as they spoke their verdict, I felt only peace. For I knew that while they could sentence my body, they could not sentence my soul. To be harmed is not to suffer. To be harmed is to be corrupted, to be turned away from what is good. And no one can force that upon you. Only you can choose it. That is why I tell you, my listener, wherever you are, whatever pain or injustice you have known, you are not what the world has done to you. You are what you choose in response. If you choose bitterness, your soul grows dim. If you choose understanding, it remains bright. The power to remain unbroken lies within your heart, untouched by the hands of others. Think of the sea. No matter how many stones are thrown into it, the sea remains whole. Its waves absorb each blow and return again to calm. So too is the soul that lives in truth, disturbed perhaps, but never destroyed. I look up at the sky, vast, flawless, endless. Everything in this world changes, I say. Empires rise and fall, cities crumble, names fade. But goodness is beyond decay. It belongs to the eternal order of things. When you live in harmony with that order, when your thoughts, words, and actions align with it, you live in peace no matter what comes. You may lose wealth, you may lose friends, you may lose even your life, but you cannot lose your essence. And that essence, your soul, is your true home. It is not found in temples or palaces or monuments. It lives quietly within your own awareness, waiting for you to return to it. The students listen silently. Some look down as though searching their hearts. Others gaze outward toward the brightening sky. Plato closes his tablet and rests it beside him. There are no more notes to take, only truths to feel. The morning has fully come. The horizon glows with soft gold, and the first warmth of the sun spreads slowly across the marble stones. The shadows of the olive trees stretch long across the courtyard, and the breeze carries with it the scent of the sea, calm, infinite, unhurried. The fire beside me is now only a memory, faint warmth in the ashes, a wisp of smoke curling into the bright air. The night's long conversation has ended, yet the peace it brought lingers like perfume. And so I speak again, softly, not to my students alone, but to you, the quiet listener who has stayed through the long night of thought and reflection. Do you know, I begin, why I am not afraid, not of pain, not of poverty, not of death, not even of the world's misunderstanding? I pause, listening to the faint hum of the waking city. It is because I have learned that no one can truly harm a good person. The words fall gently, but they carry the weight of a lifetime. Plato looks at me, curious yet calm. He knows I have said this before, but this morning, as light fills the air, he hears it differently. "What do you mean, master?" he asks quietly. I smile. "I mean that the world can wound the body, insult the name, take away all that is seen. But goodness, the inner truth of the soul, cannot be touched. The body is like a garment. Time will wear it away. The name is like an echo. It fades when the voice is gone. But the soul, the living truth within, is beyond the reach of fire or blade, of judgment or time. It is made of something purer than the elements, the same essence that moves the stars and gives life to the breath. So long as one remains true to that inner light, the world can do nothing to destroy it. It may test it, challenge it, bruise it, but in doing so, it only makes the light clearer. I remember the day of my trial, the murmur of the crowd, the stern faces of the judges, the smell of dust in the air. They believed they held my fate in their hands. But as they spoke their verdict, I felt only peace. For I knew that while they could sentence my body, they could not sentence my soul. To be harmed is not to suffer. To be harmed is to be corrupted, to be turned away from what is good. And no one can force that upon you. Only you can choose it. That is why I tell you, my listener, wherever you are, whatever pain or injustice you have known, you are not what the world has done to you. You are what you choose in response. If you choose bitterness, your soul grows dim. If you choose understanding, it remains bright. The power to remain unbroken lies within your heart, untouched by the hands of others. Think of the sea. No matter how many stones are thrown into it, the sea remains whole. Its waves absorb each blow and return again to calm. So too is the soul that lives in truth, disturbed perhaps but never destroyed. I look up at the sky, vast, flawless, endless. Everything in this world changes, I say. Empires rise and fall, cities crumble, names fade. But goodness is beyond decay. It belongs to the eternal order of things. When you live in harmony with that order, when your thoughts, words, and actions align with it, you live in peace no matter what comes. You may lose wealth, you may lose friends, you may lose even your life, but you cannot lose your essence. And that essence, your soul, is your true home. It is not found in temples or palaces or monuments. It lives quietly within your own awareness, waiting for you to return to it. The students listen silently. Some look down as though searching their hearts. Others gaze outward toward the brightening sky. Plato closes his tablet and rests it beside him. There are no more notes to take, only truths to feel. I say softly, do not spend your days defending what can be taken. Defend only what is eternal. When anger comes, do not cling to it. It harms the vessel that carries it more than the target it seeks. When insult comes, do not answer it. It cannot touch your truth. When loss comes, bow to it, for everything borrowed must one day be returned. And when death comes, greet it, for it only takes what was never yours to keep. Each moment of letting go polishes the soul until it shines like a mirror, reflecting only what is real. I close my eyes and breathe deeply. The air feels alive, the same air I breathed as a child, the same that will one day fill the lungs of others long after I am gone. In this, I feel eternity, the quiet cycle of all things returning to their source. I think of those who hated me, who mocked me, who feared me. I hold no anger toward them. They could not see beyond the shadows. They believed the soul could be killed. But truth needs no defense, and goodness fears no ending. They did not harm me, they revealed me. I turn to my companions and say, let this be the final lesson. Guard your soul as you would guard a sacred flame. Do not let the winds of the world extinguish it. Feed it with honesty, kindness, and courage, and it will burn through every night. The sun climbs higher, bright and golden now. The shadows retreat. The courtyard is bathed in morning light. The fire has gone out, but its warmth lives on in the stones, in the air, in the hearts of those who have heard. And perhaps in you as well. Remember, my friend, no one can truly harm you. The world can take much, but it cannot take your essence. That remains untouched, eternal, divine. Hold that truth close, and you will walk through life with calm no matter the storm. The olive leaves rustle softly above as though agreeing. The city hums awake, yet here in this small courtyard time stands still. I lift my gaze to the bright sky and whisper, almost to myself, nothing real can be lost. And in that thought, I feel it again, the unshakable peace of one who has seen the truth and found it good. The day has fully awakened. The sky above Athens shines in soft hues of rose and gold, the air cool and sweet. The shadows that once stretched long across the courtyard have grown faint and thin. The night has ended, yet the silence it brought still lingers as though wisdom itself refuses to leave. The fire before me is gone now. Nothing remains but a few soft ashes, gray and delicate, glowing faintly beneath the light. And yet, when I hold my hand above them, I still feel warmth. It reminds me of truth, how it endures even when its flame is no longer seen. My students sit quietly, some awake, some resting. Plato watches the ashes too, his eyes thoughtful, reflecting both sorrow and peace. He knows, as I do, that the lessons of this night have come to their end. I breathe deeply and let the air move slowly through me. There is nothing more to teach, only to remind. All that I have said, I whisper, can be gathered into one simple truth: care for your soul. The words feel ancient, older than language itself. To care for the soul is to remember who you are beneath all illusion. To guard its peace, its honesty, its light. That is the only real work of life. For the body will tire, the mind will change, the world will forget your name. But the soul remembers everything. It carries every act of kindness, every moment of truth, every quiet breath of love. It is the only thing you truly own, and the only thing you will carry beyond the horizon of time. The fire is quiet. I stir the ashes gently with a stick, and they rise like faint silver dust. Each spark that floats upward seems like a memory of questions asked, lessons given, moments of courage and doubt, laughter and silence. Each one burns for an instant, then disappears into the light of morning. So it is with our days, I say softly. Each one flares, shines, and fades, yet together they create the warmth by which others live. I turn to my students and smile. When you were born, I tell them, you came with a small flame within you. You may forget it at times, or cover it with fear, or neglect it in your haste, but it never dies. Even when you believe yourself lost, even when the world grows dark, it waits, patiently, quietly, for you to notice it again. I look upward at the sky. The clouds are pale gold now, drifting lazily over the city. The world is beautiful in its simplicity, and I think, how strange that people spend their lives searching for meaning, when meaning lives quietly in everything around them. In the warmth of sunlight, in the kindness of a word, in the honesty of a single breath. The greatest truths are not distant stars to reach, but gentle lights we pass every day and forget to notice. Do not chase greatness, I murmur. Chase goodness. I say softly, do not spend your days defending what can be taken. Defend only what is eternal. When anger comes, do not cling to it. It harms the vessel that carries it more than the target it seeks. When insult comes, do not answer it. It cannot touch your truth. When loss comes, bow to it, for everything borrowed must one day be returned. And when death comes, greet it, for it only takes what was never yours to keep. Each moment of letting go polishes the soul until it shines like a mirror, reflecting only what is real. I close my eyes and breathe deeply. The air feels alive, the same air I breathed as a child, the same that will one day fill the lungs of others long after I am gone. In this, I feel eternity, the quiet cycle of all things returning to their source. I think of those who hated me, who mocked me, who feared me. I hold no anger toward them. They could not see beyond the shadows. They believed the soul could be killed. But truth needs no defense, and goodness fears no ending. They did not harm me, they revealed me. I turn to my companions and say, let this be the final lesson. Guard your soul as you would guard a sacred flame. Do not let the winds of the world extinguish it. Feed it with honesty, kindness, and courage, and it will burn through every night. The sun climbs higher, bright and golden now. The shadows retreat. The courtyard is bathed in morning light. The fire has gone out, but its warmth lives on in the stones, in the air, in the hearts of those who have heard, and perhaps in you as well. Remember, my friend, no one can truly harm you. The world can take much, but it cannot take your essence. That remains untouched, eternal, divine. Hold that truth close, and you will walk through life with calm no matter the storm. The olive leaves rustle softly above as though agreeing. The city hums awake, yet here in this small courtyard time stands still. I lift my gaze to the bright sky and whisper, almost to myself, nothing real can be lost. And in that thought, I feel it again, the unshakable peace of one who has seen the truth and found it good. Greatness is a shadow. It disappears with the light. But goodness endures. Plato closes his eyes. He is young still, but I can already see the future in him. His mind will grow vast, his questions deeper, his love for truth unending. He will write what I could not, he will teach what I can only hint at. And through him, these words will continue their journey long after this courtyard, this fire, this moment are gone. To you, my unseen friend, yes, you who listen across the centuries, know that this is how wisdom travels. Not through temples or books alone, but through hearts. From one quiet soul to another, carried on breath, on kindness, on time. It is strange, isn't it? You and I are separated by thousands of years, yet here we are, breathing the same rhythm, listening to the same fire that has burned in every age. The soul recognizes what the body forgets. That time is only the surface of eternity. The ashes shift again. A small gust of wind moves through the courtyard, scattering them softly into the air. I watch them rise, turning golden in the light. They drift like small pieces of sunlight, dissolving as they go. Everything passes, I whisper, but nothing real is ever lost. That is the mystery of life, the endless cycle of giving and returning. The warmth of this fire will fade from the stones by evening, but the heat it gave will linger in the air, in the memory, in the unseen. So too with each life. It ends, yes, but its warmth remains in those it touched. I rise slowly. My body is old, but the movement feels easy, as though gravity itself has grown gentle. I wrap my cloak around my shoulders. The fabric smells faintly of smoke and night, the scent of reflection, of peace. I look around once more at the faces of those I love, at the city awakening in soft gold. And I feel it, gratitude. Gratitude for every question, every breath, every heartbeat that led me here. I turn to the students, to the fire, to the morning, and say, do not seek to escape the world. Transform it, quietly, truthfully, through the care of your soul. Each time you choose understanding over anger, honesty over pride, kindness over indifference, you feed the eternal fire. The courtyard fills with light. The birds sing louder now, the city awakens. The wind carries the last of the ashes into the sky. They rise, scatter, and vanish, and yet I know their essence remains unseen in the air we breathe. And so I smile, not with sadness but with calm joy. For the night has taught what it was meant to teach, and the morning has come to carry it forward. The fire is gone, but its glow remains within us. And if you close your eyes, you can feel it too, the faint warmth at the center of your being, the quiet whisper that says, you have always been light. The sun now stands high above the horizon, golden and serene. The city of Athens glows beneath it, white marble bathed in light, rooftops shimmering, the air full of morning sounds. The world has awakened. The market will soon stir with merchants and laughter, children will chase each other through the streets, and the hum of life will rise again. But here in this small courtyard there is only peace. The fire has burned away. The night's lessons have been spoken, and all that remains is quiet, the kind of quiet that holds both ending and beginning within it. I rise slowly, feeling the warmth of the sunlight against my skin. For a moment I stand still, watching how the light falls across the ashes at my feet. Each spark that once danced in the dark now rests in silence, its work complete. So it is with life. We burn brightly for a time, we give warmth, and then we return to stillness, leaving light behind for others to find. I look around at my companions, my dear students, my friends. Plato watches me with that calm gaze of his, both youthful and ancient. Crito leans against the wall, arms folded, lost in thought. The younger ones who fought sleep all night now sit in awe, quiet and humbled, as though sensing that something sacred has passed among us. I smile at them all. You have listened well, I say gently. Not just with your ears, but with your hearts. That is how wisdom is meant to be heard. They do not answer. They only nod, eyes soft, breathing slow, their faces touched by sunlight and reflection. I take a few steps toward the edge of the courtyard. From here, I can see the distant city gates, the olive groves, and beyond them, the faint shimmer of the sea. Athens, beautiful, flawed, restless, eternal. How I have loved her, and how she has misunderstood me. But such is the way of the world. The heart that questions is rarely embraced by the comfort of certainty. Still I feel no bitterness, only tenderness. For in her misunderstanding, Athens has given me something greater than acceptance. She has given me purpose. Through her rejection, I discovered what cannot be taken, the peace of a soul that stands in truth. I turn back to the others. Do not grieve for what passes, I tell them. All that ends, ends only in form. The essence, the goodness, the truth, the love, it remains. What was born in light will return to light. Plato's voice breaks softly through the quiet. Master, he says, how shall we remember you? I look at him with warmth, my eyes full of affection. Do not remember me as one who taught you what to think, I say. Remember me as one who showed you how to look. For the answers were never mine, they have always been within you. He lowers his gaze and nods. In that small gesture, I see that he understands. I walk slowly toward the threshold, where light spills across the stone like water. The air outside is clear and alive. I pause, looking out at the world I am about to leave behind. But it does not feel like leaving. It feels like returning to the great stillness from which all things come. I turn once more to those behind me, and to you, my listener across time, and speak my final words of this long, gentle night. Care for your soul. Let truth be your guide and kindness your language. Do not fear what comes or cling to what goes. Live simply, question sincerely, love quietly, and your days will be full of peace. For in the end, it is not the noise of the world that matters, but the calm of your own heart. The courtyard is silent. The olive leaves rustle softly in the breeze, and a beam of sunlight falls across the old stones where the fire once burned. Dust motes drift lazily through the light, tiny, golden, weightless, like thoughts freed from the burden of the body. Plato steps forward, but I lift a hand gently. Do not follow, I say. Not yet. The path I walk now is not to be followed with feet, but with spirit. Your time will come, each in your own hour, each in your own way. Until then, live with awareness and let truth guide you home. He bows his head. The others do the same. I watch them, and I am filled not with sorrow, but with love. The deep, abiding love of a teacher who knows his students will go on to light new fires in other nights. And now I turn to you, the one listening far from Athens in another age entirely. You too are part of this circle. You too have sat beside the fire in your own way, listening through the silence. What you have heard tonight is not ancient. It is alive, for wisdom does not age and peace does not belong to one time. Carry this stillness with you. Let it rest behind your eyes, in your breath, in the spaces between your thoughts. When the world feels loud or uncertain, return to this place, to the quiet courtyard, the dying fire, the calm voice beneath the stars. I will be there. Not as a figure of stone or story, but as a presence of peace within you. The wind moves softly through the olive trees. The sound is like a sigh, like a lullaby. I take one final breath, slow, steady, grateful. Then I step into the light. The courtyard glows behind me, golden and timeless. The students remain seated, still as statues, yet inside them the flame of understanding has been lit. And as the day rises over Athens, I walk away quietly, my robe trailing through the dust, the last whisper of the fire still warm upon the morning air. And thus the night of reflection ends. The fire has faded, but its light continues, in the hearts of those who remain awake to truth, and in you who have listened until the dawn. Rest now, friend of wisdom. The voice grows quiet, but the lesson lives on.